Okay, so what last time allowed us to do the shortcut? What about these problems said, hey, we can factor these using our shortcut? No, it's always going to be a C. What about this number right here? What about the number in front of x squared? It was what? It had to be 1. So every single problem last class, A equals 1. Well, what if you look at this one down here? A doesn't equal 1 here until you do what? You take out your greatest common factor. This was one of the last ones that we did. So you would take out that 3x squared minus 1x minus 2. There's your A equals 1, and then you can factor using the shortcut. Now, just as a reminder, and this is how quick these can be, we could factor these probably in about a minute if we knew our rules. So I need A equals 1, and I need two numbers that multiply to give me 12, but add to give me 7. So let's factor that real quick. What are the two numbers that add to give us 7? 3 and 4. So we would have x plus 3 times x plus 4. Okay, so that's your shortcut. Now, if, and let's go to this next page, now we don't have A equals 1, and we have a y equals. So not only are we going to have to factor this, we're going to have to do what to it? What does the direction say up here? We're going to solve. If there's an equal sign, that is a good indicator that you're going to have to solve this problem. Now, what does y equal whenever we are solving? Last class we had a little picture that looked like this, and we said, well, hey, when we're solving, we're finding these 2 points right here. What is the y value at those 2 points? 0. So what is over here in this? What is y going to be? 0. Okay, so that's going to allow us to be able to solve after we factor. Now, this is just one of my little weird tendencies. I really like my equal 0 to be on the other side. So that is the first thing. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this, and I'm just going to move my equal 0 to the other side. So 2x squared minus 11x plus 5 equals 0. Notice you have your same steps from last time that we're going to do on this one. So first thing you're going to do is we need to label our A, our B, and our C. So we have A is 2. What is B? Negative 11. And then what is C? 5. And then the process is still the same. We have to multiply A times C now, but now when I multiply 2 times 5, I get 10. We're so used to whatever's down here at C being at the top of our T chart. That does not happen when A does not equal 1. Hence why you can't use a shortcut. Okay? So now, what do we need our two factors to add up to? Negative 11. So what are those two numbers? 10 and 1, and then I heard people add negatives. Perfect. Now, yes ma'am. What was the purpose of us getting these two numbers? Negative 10 and negative what? What are we going to do with that negative 11? We are going to replace it, because how do we know how many terms do we like to have the factor by grouping? 4. Because remember, we're turning 3 terms into 4 terms. So your first term stays the same, 2x squared. Then instead of that negative 11x, you're going to put negative 10x minus 1x. In either order, because most of the time it doesn't matter. And then I'm going to bring down my plus 5. This equals 0, I just keep bringing it down because I don't have to worry about it till the very end. Once you have 4 terms, what do? Parentheses, you have to group the first 2 and the last 2. What is your greatest common factor in this first set of parentheses? 2x. I'm going to divide by 2x because I have to get my leftovers. And then we are left with x minus 5. Then what can we take out of that second parentheses? A negative 1. Remember that this second GCF here is the only time that we can take out a positive or a negative 1. The going to take out a minus 1 and divide both of those by negative 1, and we are left with x minus 5. Now still bring down that equal. Yes, we have to write our factors. So I'm going to write x plus 5, or excuse me, x minus 5, and then where do we get that second factor from? From the 2x and the minus 1, so 2x minus 1. Now we have our two factors set, or two binomial factors set equal to 0. So what's the last step to solve? Set them equal to 0. Guys, if you get to this step, you have done the hard part. Like, you should feel pretty good at this point. So now you're just going to set x minus 5 equal to 0 and 2x minus 1 equal to 0. So if you plus 5 on that one, that's x equals 5. And then here you've got a couple steps. You got a plus 1, 2x equals 1, and then if we divide by 2, x equals 1/2. So those are our solutions. Guys, one of the most, or the things that people get confused the most is the solutions and the factors. So let's say that we only had to factor this, and I'm going to write this out just so that you have it on your notes. The factors of that problem are right here. They were x minus 5 times 2x minus 1. The solutions were x equals 5 and x equals 1/2. I also want you to know that the solutions can be written as a solution set, meaning you can write them in funny looking brackets. Curly brackets is the real name. So I could do 1/2, comma 5 in curly brackets. Now what happens if you put that in parentheses? What do I automatically think it is? An ordered pair, but is it? No, the fact that you're putting the curly brackets around it right here means that those are two x values. Okay, that's what that means. So it's just a different way to write your ordered pair. Or, no, I said that wrong. It's a different way to write your answer. What do we need to do first to this one? We have to set it equal to 0. That needs to be your first step, even before you look for a greatest common factor. So let's plus 2n and minus 3, and I'm going to do it at the same time just to save myself some time. So I've got 5n squared plus 2n minus 3 equals 0. Now, at some point, you don't have to write A, B, and C underneath your problem, but what is A in this case? 5. Right there. Can you use the shortcut on this one? No. That's the thought process you need to have. B is what? 2, and C is negative 3. So what's our first step? A times C. So that's going to be 5 times negative 3 is negative 15. Now, we need factors, and what do they need to add to give us? A positive 2. So what are those two numbers? Okay, and I hear a 3 and a 5, and I heard some negative 3s and some negative 5s. Since you want it to be a positive 2, this 5 better be positive, so it's going to be a negative 3. When I'm not using the shortcut, I do like to put whatever variable is on my middle term on my two factors. Because what are you fixing to do with those two factors? You're going to do what to 2n? You're going to split it up. So you've got 5n squared minus 3n plus 5n minus 3 equals 0. What do I do with this equals 0 till the very end? You just bring it down every single line. Okay? Don't let that throw off your factoring. Once you have 4 terms, what are you going to do? You're going to group the first 2 and the last 2. And what can I take out of the first one? Just an n. So n, and then I divide both of those by n, and we're left with 5n minus 3. And then what can we take out of the second parentheses? Well, when you say nothing, what should you think in your head? A 1. And this is the only place that you can take out a positive 1. So I'm going to take out a plus 1. And then, of course, if you divide both of those by 1, you are left with 5n minus 3. I'm going to keep bringing down that kind of annoying equal 0, but I need it there to know to solve at the end. These match, so there's your check. So your factors are 5n minus 3 and n plus 1. Last step is to solve. What do you do once you get your two factors? Set them equal to 0. So I've got 5n minus 3 and then n plus 1. So this requires a little bit of work. So I've got a plus 3 on both sides. 5n equals 3 divided by 5. So n equals 3/5. And then here, a little less work. N equals negative 1. So those are our two solutions. This one, but what do you do if there is a negative in front? That your squared term is negative, what do you do? Take it out. You've got to take out a GCS. So you would take out a negative 1, divide everything by negative 1. Technically, you would divide that 0 by negative 1, but we know that's 0. So you have 4x squared minus 4x minus 3 equals 0. We won't solve all the way. Let's just at least break it up a little bit and find our two numbers, okay, just to practice. So then we would have to multiply a times c if you need to. You can label them right under there. You do not have to rewrite it or anything. A times c, so negative 12. What two numbers that multiply the negative 12 add to give us a negative 4? Well, yes, but negative 6 and 2. Okay, so from there you would have to break that up into 4 terms, and then you would have to finish solving. But we're not going to finish solving the whole way. Now, does it matter that you have two variables in here? First thing I want you to realize is that you cannot solve if it has two variables, okay? But our A is still in the front, our B is still in the middle, our C is still at the end. But is the C, is B squared part of the C, or is it just the number? Just the number. So now I've got A times C. What is 3 times negative 48? Negative 144. And then we need two numbers that multiply to that but add to negative 10. So let's grab our calculator, because that's a big number. So I'm going to do in my calculator 144 divided by x. Oh, it's not 1444. Look at our table. And then since I need one positive and one negative, I'm looking for two numbers that have a difference of 10 on my table. So let me know if you see something that has a difference of 10. Oops, right there. 8 and 18. So I'm going to say 8 and 18. And then I'm going to figure out which one needs to be negative. So which one is that? Negative 18. When there's two variables, I really like to put the variables. So I put an A, B with each of these. Then we rewrite. So we keep our first term at 3a squared. Then instead of the minus 10ab, I'm going to write plus 8ab minus 18ab. And then minus, oh, I'm out of room, 48 b squared. And then once you have four terms, what do? Group, parentheses. And now we just take out our GCF. So what's our GCF on this parentheses? Just an A. So then when we divide by A, we're left with 3A plus 8B. And then what can we take out on the second parentheses? Guys, I'll give you a hint. Look at what you need to have left over, and then ask yourself, if I need a 3 left over in my parentheses, what do I have to divide negative 18 by? Negative 6. So I'm going to try that. It might be wrong, but at least it gives me a place to start. And then any variables they have in common? A b. So I'm going to divide both of those by negative 6b. So that's going to give us a 3a and then a plus 8b. That works. So now we can write our final factors, which is 3a plus 8b times 8 minus 6b. All right, and this is from your homework. Okay, so there were a couple that were a little confusing, so we wanted to make sure that we did it. So the area of a rectangle is given by the expression x squared plus 11x plus 24. If the length is x plus 8, what is the expression for the width? So my thing is, up here when you have this area, we know we need to break that into a length times a width, but what's the only way to break something that has an x squared and an x term into two pieces? Factor it. To factor it. Because it already tells us that the length is x plus 8, which is great. So now, I'm just going to factor this and see what happens. Can I use the shortcut? Yes, because a equals 1. That's the first thing I noticed whenever I turned it to this problem. So now, 1 times 24, if I make my t-chart, what two numbers multiply to 24 but add to 11? 8 and 3. Remember the shortcut, you can just write your factors. X plus 8 and x plus 3. Well, they already told me that the length was x plus 8. And so that makes x plus 3 the width. So you kind of get unconventional answers. Okay? They could have just as easily said the length is x plus 8, the width is x plus 3, find the area. That would have been a question from last unit. 1. It says use the dimensions you found in problem 20 to find the perimeter of the rectangle. How would you guys find the perimeter? What do you think about when you hear perimeter? You think of adding up all the sides. So you may want to draw a picture. You could put x plus 8, x plus 8, and then x plus 3, x plus 3. Then you have to add all of those up. So I'm going to do all my x's first. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4x. So the perimeter equals 4x. And if I add all of those up, 32, 22, thank you. 4x plus 22, it would be the expression for the perimeter. The sum of a number and its square is 12. What is the number? What's the first thing that y'all see in that problem? Sum. What does sum mean? Addition. So the sum of a number, and what do y'all want to call the number? X. Thank y'all for saying X. Some people like N, I like X. The sum of a number and its squared, so that's just X squared, is 12. So here's what it looks like. X plus X squared equals 12. How do we solve that? When you see an X squared, first thing you should think of, I'm probably going to have to factor that. Can't tell you how many times I say that in geometry. So what's the first step in factoring? 0. You want to set it equal to 0. Now in this case, when you're setting this equal to 0, you need to also take the time to do what to this x and x squared? Yeah, you need your x squared first. So x squared plus x minus 12 equals 0. What do you do next? Is there a GCF? Yes, no? No, there's not. Can I use a shortcut? That needs to be the next thing you ask. Yes. I have to be a little bit excited about that. I am. So we can use the shortcut. And so in this case, a times c, so negative 12. And I need two numbers that add to give us positive 1. What are those numbers? 4 and negative 3. So now, since it's shortcut, I'm going to write my factors. X plus 4, x minus 3. And then what's the last step to actually actually get your two x values. Set them equal to 0. So x plus 4 equals 0. X minus 3 equals 0. So x equals negative 4. X equals 3. So those would be the two numbers that you could plug in and make it true. I guess it should probably say numbers. If the sum of a number and 5 less than the square of the number is 1, what is the number? So first of all, I see the sum of a number, and so I know I'm going to have x plus something that is down here in our room. So how do I write 5 less than the square of the number? X squared minus 5, because less than means you have to reverse the order that you see it in the word problem. So x squared minus 5, and then is 1 is equals 1. So what do we need to do to get started on this one? Set them equal to 0, so I'm going to minus 1 on both sides. In that process, I'm going to take the time to switch these two. So I have x squared plus x, then minus 6 equals 0. Then, and I just want to show you how quick eventually you'll get. I know my factors are going to be x plus 3, x minus 2 equals 0. So x equals negative 3, x equals 2. The length of a rectangle is 2 times the width. The area of the rectangle is 72 square inches. Find the dimensions of the rectangle. I like to draw a picture on these, so that's the first thing I'm going to do. Okay, and then it says the length of the rectangle is 2 times the width. So to me, that says the length is 2w. So I just wrote length in terms of width. From there, the area, I might not even need that rectangle, so I'm going to erase it for a minute. And then it says the area of the rectangle is 72 square inches. So I'm going to make a list of everything that I have so far. Find the dimensions of the rectangle. So if I have the area and I have a length, probably what formula should I plug it into? Area equals length times width. And then I'm just going to plug in everything that I know. So I have 72 equals 2w times w. This one isn't going to work out the way I want it. That's okay. We'll work with it. So then if I actually multiply that, so that gives us 72 equals 2w squared. You'll see this a lot in geometry, where you're actually not even going to have to factor this either. If you have a squared term, but not to the first power term, then you could technically get that w squared by itself. So whenever you do that, divide by 2. So you get w squared equals 36. And if we have or haven't, the way that you get rid of a squared is you take the square root. And then what is the square root of 36? 6. So the width is going to be 6. Then how do we get the length? Plug it in right there. So 2 times 6 is the length is 12. So last one we're going to do for today. The length of a rectangular garden is 4 more than its width. So to me, I see length is, so that's L equals 4 more than the width. If you write W plus 4, that's fine. Then it says the area is 60. Okay, if you have the area given to you, more than likely you are going to use the area formula. So once again, I'm going to plug into area equals length times width. So I have 60 equals, my length is 4 plus W, and then I have times W. Now I have it written a terrible, terrible way right now. What do I need to add to make that much, much better? Parentheses right here. I did that on purpose just to make you remember. I'd always use parentheses just in case. Then What do we need to do to simplify this right-hand side? Distribute. So we have 60 equals 4w plus w squared. And then what do we need to do to solve? Set it equal to 0. So we have 0 equals 4w plus w squared minus 60. Now, I already told y'all that drives me crazy when the 0 is on the right-hand side. So I'm going to rewrite this with the 0 on the right-hand side. Sorry, I don't like it when it's on the left-hand side. But what do I also need to do with this polynomial when I take the time to rewrite it? I need to switch. Yeah, I've got to switch the w squared and the 4w. So that's going to be w squared plus 4w minus 60 equals 0. Is this shortcut or not shortcut? Shortcut, because I have a equals 1. So I have 1 times negative 60. Then if we, what are two numbers that will multiply to negative 60 but add to give us a positive 4? What is it? 15 and 4, but that gives you 11. But people do that a lot. So let's check it real quick. So let's do in our calculator, 60 divided by 0. Remember, don't ever put your negative. 60 divided by x, excuse me. And then we need a difference of 4. Six and 10. So 10 and 6, and then which one needs to be positive? The 10 needs to be positive, the negative needs to be on the 6. Then we can write our factors. W plus 10, W minus 6 equals 0. Set both of those equal to 0 to solve. So then this one is going to be W equals negative 10, and this one is going to be W equals 6. Which one of those don't belong? Isn't that a Sesame Street song? Mm-hmm. Which one makes no sense? Like if you say the width equals negative 10, does that make sense? So if you have a negative where it doesn't make sense, guess what you get to do to it? Cross it out. So the width is 6. You would take that and plug it right here to get the length. So the length is 10. So those would be the two dimensions for this problem.